Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. Hello, my friends. Here we are again. Let's create our space of peace. It's helpful, it's necessary. That's what we can contribute, that something changes in the world. For some time, the media has been pushing fear, fear, fear. Right now that has a bit relaxed, but now it's pushing anger. Anger combined with fear, another subject to be afraid about. What we can do is not go along with it. What we can do is to hold on to our own self, here now. Not get overwhelmed by those emotions. Just before, Maria sent me a quote of some Swami Rama, where he talks about self-confidence, because she felt he's talking like me. Where he says that self-confidence has nothing to do with the ego. It's not confidence in your body, it's not confidence in your mind, it's confidence in yourself. So self-confidence basically means that capacity to connect consciously with yourself, with that unmovable aspect that is not affected by what is happening around, by what is happening in the mind. That's what we need. That's how we can contribute that this intensity of a struggle that is happening energetically in this world can be shifted into a positive direction. It's going to happen, definitely. The outcome is already clear. Simply, we can contribute that it goes faster and less painful. Then Maria sent me a question. She says she's still doing her self-inquiry, but some time ago she has started to chant. And actually it's already quite long ago that one Ayurvedic doctor has recommended her to chant because she rather has a very active mind. And so she feels that's helpful to chant, but then wonders whether it's a good thing to do so, chanting. And somebody told her you should come to a state where you are not caring that your mind is not quiet, that your mind is very active. Right. So let's start with that last statement. It's good to learn to detach and not to worry about such things, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong in taking steps to quieten down the mind. But it's not something that we can do with force, with force of will. Because if we with willpower try to control the mind, then with a bit practice one is capable of doing so, but the tendency is the moment we let go of that control, the moment we are not more putting our willpower on it, vroom, it just goes again. So that advice to come to a space where you are not worried about how your mind is going is good, but not to get stuck there. You still can do something about it. And what is needed is that we learn not to be so much interested in all the stuff that we are thinking all the time. The stuff that goes round and round and round in the head. And when we fight it and think, stop, enough, then for a moment it may stop and there it goes again. When we fight the mind, we also strengthen the mind. Give energy to those thoughts, to that agitation. But we can learn not to be so much interested in all that stuff that we are thinking. Most of the time, without being aware of it, we are so interested and think it's so important and so interesting what we're thinking and thinking and thinking. Well, it's not most of the time. And so we can find ways to redirect the attention away from the mind, not trying to fight it, not controlling it with force, but just not giving that much attention. And one way is certainly chanting. That's fine. Mari, if you like to chant and you feel from the heart a connection that something is happening when you are chanting, then by all means chant. Chant regularly, every day for some time. It's certainly a practice as good as any other. There is no contradiction doing that with the self-inquiry we are doing. But do that, I'll say this now not only to Mari, but generally, do that kind of thing only if you really in it with your heart, that you like to do it, that you feel, when I chant something is happening, that vibration of the chanting is somehow helping my body to relax and to connect. If you feel like this, then chanting is fine, but it's certainly no use doing this kind of practices simply because one has heard that could be a good thing and then think, I should do it. But one doesn't really feel like doing it. It's working only if one is in it with one's heart. Then it's fine. By all means, if you have found now something that helps you to quieten the mind, perfect. I said we cannot force the mind quiet with will. I mean, when there is a lot of agitation, we can for a moment use the will. Hey, stop! But then learn to relax. And even when we relax, not to just completely go back to the thoughts that we had. And even if the thoughts are coming, that the attention is not more fixed on that level, but we learn to redirect it. Not more give so much interest to the thoughts, to the emotions that it produces, but simply to be here now, in one way or another. You can also redirect the attention just to the inquiry. Who am I? Who is them? I am. You can redirect the attention to the simple fact that you are breathing in, breathing out, and relaxing that. If we do these kind of things, then gradually our restless thoughts are getting calmer and calmer, and then sometimes it may also happen that they subside and there are simply no thoughts there, not brought about with fighting the mind, willfully controlling it, but by not more taking them the thoughts so serious. Go about it with patience, with persistence, and with self-confidence. Self-confidence means that one learns to connect consciously with oneself and draw strength from that, and not from the feedback that one gets from outside. Okay, then I stop talking just by myself and invite you. Is there anyone who would like to come in and say something? You're welcome to come.
Hello, Werner.
Hello? Hello, Nelly.
Yeah, hello, Werner. Yeah, now, lately I have some strong emotions and difficult situation. Yeah. And I yes, experience strong emotions related to my close person.
Yeah.
And I have fears and worries and doubts what to do right, as usually happens. Feel a little more relaxed, yeah. And I see that I remember what you say, that we play these roles, and I try to remind it to me. But when I think about life of my close person, it's very difficult to accept it, to aware it, that this is just a role. That yes, I don't know how it can. Maybe it can be.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. I see that it can finish. So I think about death and about that she can harm herself and all these things. And I think about this role, that this is just a role, but inside everything is okay. Whatever happens, anyway, she's like we all, she's a divine being and so on. But I see that it's not easy to accept it, to wear it. Yeah. And I watch it at this, and I wanted to say something else. But one thing I saw, that today I waked up with this anxious, and I began to think about gratitude and think about what I have and for what I can can be gratitude. Yes, I began to call these things, and so there are so many things. And I saw that I fix on this problem so much and don't think and don't see all other good things. And I felt much better because I understood that I have a lot of support when I think of it. Yes, it is. And I thought again what you remind us every time, that we shouldn't make this situation worse when we involve into it. And yeah, and I caught myself that when I try to be easy, yeah, I this question come: how can you be so calm when these things happen? Yeah, and yeah, but I understand that it is so important because it gives me energy to make right decision. And yesterday when it happened, I felt so anxious, and I thought maybe I should go, I should save, I should do this, that, but I didn't go. I just relaxed, and then I felt so calm that I don't need to do anything. And the other question came into my mind: how can you be so calm?
Yeah, right.
And I really sometimes don't understand, is it really okay to be calm and don't do anything? Or maybe I miss time and this, yeah, but yes, it happens. I try to relax anyway.
Try to relax, Annie. Yeah. Also, let's start with that part, with that. How can you be so calm? Then the thought comes, and then one feels irresponsible to being calm instead of being all intention and worrying about somebody that is close, and maybe I need to do something. But of course, if you are intention, if you are worried, then you are sending something that is not helping the situation at all. In contrary, it's adding more tensions that reach that person and make it more difficult for that person if you worry, if you are not calm. But then out of attachment, the tendency is not to be calm, but to be anxious and to be full of tensions. And somehow we have been conditioned as if this was a virtue, as if this was something positive, and if we are not doing that, as if we were missing our duty. But it's not, it's a false conditioning. You can, it's not that you have to make a wall and okay, I don't care, and it's not my business. You can connect, but if on top of that you are capable of learning to be quiet, calm, then you're helping that person much, much more than when you're always worried or anxious. Whether you go and do something or not, you have to decide in every situation. You cannot say you have to go and do something or you have not to go and do something. What you feel in that situation is right. That is right. And sometimes it's not doing something. Sometimes it's just connecting and making yourself quiet and calm and detached and joyous even, if possible. And then something very beautiful goes to that other person. You are not responsible for the actions and decisions of somebody else. Of course, parents have a responsibility as long as the kids are growing up, but their job is to teach the kids that they are themselves responsible beings, and that they become independent and learn to understand that they are responsible for their decisions, how they live, what they do, and not the society, and not the parents, and not somebody else. So, and once the kids are in their own life, independent, more or less, then it's not more the parents' responsibility to be concerned. Well, you can superficially be concerned. In your heart you can connect, but at the same time your job is really to remain rooted in your own self as good as you can. The more you can do that, the more you are helping that other person, especially somebody who is close. But even people who are close, you are not responsible for their choices, how they live, what they do. Sometimes when you feel strongly, okay, I have to go and talk about, and maybe in that way I can avoid that the person makes a wrong choice, fine. But most of the time they don't want really advice. When people are in a bad shape and we come after them, then they don't like that we try to give them advice. And if you feel, no, it's right now, just to be here, to be calm, then that is the right thing to do. And even if after that in the mind it bubbles up, oh, but how can I just be so calm in that situation, as if it was something immoral to remain calm in such a situation, then you can be sure that you need not believe this kind of arguments anymore. But be sure, the more you are connected, the calmer you are. And the more you are connected, the greater is your help that you are giving to the persons that are close to you. Just because of that energetic connection, then something very beautiful flows from you to that person. If you are anxious, if you are worried, if you pull out our hair and think, oh, it's terrible, then we are just sending all those kind of strained emotions and make it more difficult for the other people.
Yes, Werner.
And
Thank you.
one more point, you said, okay, you say to look at it as a role, what we are playing here in this world. That's okay if it's for me, but then when the other person is in trouble, then it's not so easy to to just think of it as a role. That's because you don't really quite believe it, that it's just a role. You can accept it as a working theory that helps you to relax more, to detach more, but after all, I'm still that person. And if I'm that person, the other person is also that person. So you can strengthen that awareness. Hey, come on, it's a role I'm playing. And the others are also characters in the same theater. And sometimes in the theater, those characters around us, they suffer. And sometimes it's our role that we can grab them and pull them out of their suffering, but sometimes it's not. And there it's good also in this situation to learn not to identify with the role. Okay, this is what the confrontation for me to learn. It's a confrontation that may be not easy because it brings up a lot of emotions that are contradictory, that creates tensions. But then that is the lesson for me to learn to see that, to be in that situation, and at the same time not to be in the situation, to play the role, at the same time be aware, but I'm not really affected by it. Deep down, there is that which is not affected, which gives the life, the consciousness to the possibility of that situation at the same time, is not really the figure, the character in the play, in the situation.
Thank you, Werner. I think I will listen it again.
Yes, you're welcome.
And again. Yes. Thank you so much for your support. I'll try to detach. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very helpful.
In that detachment, you can actually be much more loving, much more positive, that love you feel for those who are close can flow much freer than when we are full of tension and anxious.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Hari Om. All right. Would anybody else like to talk? You're welcome to come in. It's good to remember, to remind ourselves again and again. This world, we came into this world as a learning process. This world is not as real as it appears. It's a magic show. It is constructed that we can appear in this show, that we can appear as a character, as a person in this show, and at the same time learn to become aware, but there is always that aspect of us that is not affected by it, that is not incarnated, that is not limited by this world. Why do we come to a world like this? Because the self wants to gain experience. And with the experience, the strength, the intensity is increasing, essentially not changing, and yet something is always unfolding, expanding, growing, intensifying. And this world is created in such a way that we have confrontations all the time. Happy confrontations, joyous confrontations, but also very unhappy and sad, restless confrontations. And then it's very helpful if we learn not to be attached. Also, when it's tense, also when the situation is not easy, that we learn to be aware there is something that is just watching the whole show, learning from it, learning from the emotions that come up, learning not to be overwhelmed by the emotions, not to be overwhelmed by the circumstances, playing a role in it intensely, beautiful, with full heart at the same time, being aware that there is something unconcerned, unattached, free, never affected by it. In this way, every moment is teaching us is making us grow, is making the consciousness more expansive. And especially when there is intensity, then there is also intensely great benefit in it. It's good to remind ourselves we're taking ourselves, our role, too serious. We're taking ourselves and what we think we should do and the impact we should have in the world too serious. And incidentally, the more we are capable to connect with the self, the less we are concerned and take ourselves and our ideas and think our thoughts what should and should not be, the less we take that so serious, the more we have an impact. The more we learn ourselves, and the greater the impact, the greater the influence is there. And positive, creative, beautiful influence is there. That's the magic is it. That's the amazing magic of it. It's not by feeling more and more concerned and thinking, what should I do? Should I do? Oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Sometimes it's perfectly valid to evaluate the possibilities and then choose, but not to get all tense and restless about it. That's something that we have learned to do, and we can learn to undo it again. We can learn that we can function also on this relative level of this world, being aware that there is something strong that is there like a rock, unaffected by the current of life that is passing. And at the same time, be fully aware of the story that is unfolding, of the situation, how they are forming and reforming, of the emotions that come and go, of the confrontations as they come, in connection with things, in connection with plants, with animals, in connection with human beings. It's a magic show, not to be taken too serious. And don't be afraid that you become incapable of acting on this level. The opposite is the truth. It's getting easier if we stop taking it so serious. But then that idea also is getting less that I must be perfect. What is the perfect thing to do in this situation? And sometimes people talk about Mahatmas and say they are always doing the perfect thing. It's more that for a Mahatma, the idea of a perfect way of dealing with a situation is simply not more there. And they are in harmony, do their things, but Mahatmas also learn from situations. And maybe in a similar situation, the next time they may behave differently. But if you learn to be connected, then there is a spoon and then there is a spontaneity and a freshness in it. And that is much more creative and beautiful what we bring in the situation than the idea I should act perfectly. I should do the right thing. Of course, should do the right thing. If we are not always worried about doing the right thing, then the right thing happens spontaneously. Of course, we should not do bad things, harm living beings unnecessarily. But if we are in touch with ourselves, we simply don't do that. It's not something that comes natural. It's something that comes out of a twisted mind. But then the idea of the right thing, the perfect thing, we can forget about it. Just be natural. Be natural yourself. And then you're doing the right thing. Okay. Is there anybody who would like to talk? Please come in.
Yes, hello, Werner, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Hello, Leora.
Okay, because yeah, something was wrong with my computer.
Uh-huh.
I feel I know what you're talking about. I understand it. And even now when I'm trying to share, I feel something in my belly, like a sort of fear or a little bit of agitation. So what I can maybe say is that letting go of the mind as I'm used to, with all the habits, and creating stories and creating also sequences. When there is something happening, then the mind seems to create the sequence, like to analyze how did it become so and so, and he is so and so, and she is, and me, and relationships and all that, yeah, magic show. So recently I have been feeling that there's something in me that just not only wants to let go, but lets go, because it's becoming, also with what's happening in the world, it's really becoming like a magic show, a real magic show. I mean, like
a madhouse show, huh? Madhouse show.
Yeah, really, really, right. Yeah, so much pain, so much, yeah. So, but there is this need, there is this fear to hold on to what I've known. Like it's like letting go of me. I feel somehow that there is no me in like the new, somehow I feel there has been a shift for me. I'm too tired of trying to control, and yeah, when my children are having a difficulty, then I'm also having a difficulty. No, I'm sad and very painful, but I don't have a difficulty when they have a difficulty, and I can help, I can do what I want. But when I see that my son is losing it, sometimes he gets really, when he's with the children, he gets like, sometimes he loses control, and it's difficult for him to, yeah. So I'm there, but sometimes it's very, very painful. At the same time, something in me is very clear of my role there, what I can do and what I can't do. The pain is very, very big, very big, not less big than before, but somehow I don't carry the pain with me all the time. It's not like as heavy. When it hurts, it hurts. When it doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. It's behind me. Now it's a new event. Now it's new something. When I go out to nature, recently now in the spring here in Israel, it's so beautiful. It's next to my house. It's like 5 minutes from where I live. I can go into the forest. I experience bliss without practicing. I just experienced like everything becomes clear. I'm becoming very sensitive in a good way and very happy. Not like something I've known like before. Very happy, very together with everything. Like so like there is still something that in me that needs to understand, you know, with the tools that I've been used to, but there's nothing to understand. Really, there's nothing to understand. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible.
Right.
You've been saying it. You've been saying this all the time in so many words and so little words, so few words. Yeah. Okay.
In the beginning, you said when you listen to me talking like this, then there is some fear in your belly. Right. Because it's great, wonderful that that letting go is happening much easier and often more profound than previous, but then something still doesn't quite want to let go and is afraid. But if I'm letting go, then what remains? Then there is nothing. There is that fear that of annihilation. If we are not holding on to our little petty personality and let that go, then there is that fear. But then what? Then as if everything is gone. But of course, what you are, you're not gone. You can't go. You are. There is nothing to let go about that. What we can let go is the unnecessary holding on to identifications that create pain and suffering. And of course, we can experience pain as long as we are projecting in this magic show. As long as we are appearing in a human form, then we are also experiencing pain. But that's great what you understand now, what you feel now, more that the pain comes, it's there, it's intense, and it's gone, and it's gone. Instead, and people have the tendency then to hold on, to hook into the pain, and carrying the pain along and turn it over and over, and then the pain becomes suffering. But otherwise, it's just a momentary experience. There's nothing wrong experiencing pain. Seeing somebody suffer, especially somebody we feel very close, and feeling their pain, then of course we do feel pain. But then we don't need to hold on to it. That's great. And then it comes, it's there, it's an intense experience, nothing wrong with it, and it goes, and it's gone. And you're new and fresh and open for the next situation. So that fear of letting go, it's good to acknowledge it and to be aware of it. You can also really open up to it and relax. You cannot, with an act of will, remove it, but you can make it possible, invite it, that also goes. By not holding on to, but just acknowledging it's there and opening up to the possibility that that fear also goes. And then not again creating new imagination how it should be that I as a person survive. Because the person is from the beginning not something that lives. The life is borrowed from you, from what you are, and that what you are cannot go, is not disappearing with any letting go.
So in a way, I feel it's like, you know, it's like growing up, but in the spiritual. Right. And then it's like, now I'm grown up, now I take the responsibility, I don't blame other people. I'm a grown up, I know what to do. But again, it's not what I know of me, it's the responsibility from something else, not from me, Liora, grown up, who learned a lot, who practiced a lot, or so and so. It's another responsibility. It's like letting go into the responsibility of something else.
Right.
Or maybe this divine being, which I'm not responsible for. So the letting go is like going very deep. Do you understand what I mean when I say that?
Yes, I think so.
When they teach when they teach us to be responsible, so when I'm dealing with a doctor and I say, okay, I know you're a doctor, you've studied a lot, but I want to decide for myself. I want to take the decision because I'm responsible. But it's another type of responsibility. It's like just living through sort of freedom, really. If I know that I don't want to hurt anybody, I don't want to hurt myself, but I make mistakes, of course. I will not always say exactly what you wanted to hear from me, and will not always do for you exactly what you expected, or also to myself. It's like this kind of responsibility of like letting go into the freedom, let the freedom take charge, something like that.
Right. And you do experience it without thinking that you're going to do something about it, or experience it when you described what sometimes happens when you are in the forest, in nature, and then you certainly experience a joyousness which is not the effect from something that has happened, but simply is. And actually, the more we remove all barriers, the more that joyousness of life is simply there, not caused. And that comes with the freedom of being. Right.
Okay, Werner, this was...
Continue like this. And this is, you are on the good way.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Hari Om. Hari Om. Is there anybody else who would like to come in? You're welcome to come in. 33 people here. What Leora starts to experience more and more is that basically it's so very simple. What counts is so simple. It's basically so easy. It should be natural. But somehow, having grown up in this story, in this world, we have accumulated so many ideas, so many conditionings, so many things that somehow the mind is too screwed up to be capable of accepting the simplicity of it. And so most of us, we have to go through all kinds of struggle, through all kinds of cleansing, through all kinds of efforts, sometimes joyous, sometimes painful, until that readiness is coming for that simplicity. For that naturalness. There are a few exceptions in this world of great beings who never lost that touch, who never got really caught up in the mental games. For most of us, we just invariably, we have accumulated so much of stuff growing up and looking up as children to the parents, to the adults around, and starting to imitate their functioning, their often painful functioning, their often neurotic functioning, creating our troubles, creating our pains, and then thinking this is normal, that's how it is, forgetting that natural way of existing. And we have to struggle and struggle and struggle simply to become aware more and more. It's so easy, so simple. We just have to let go of all that burden that we have accumulated that stands in the way. And somehow it seems for most of us, until that readiness is there to accept that beauty and simplicity in its wonderful way, we have to first convince ourselves to struggle and struggle and struggle until we are also getting tired of that struggling and ready to let go. That's the amazing thing about it. Again, I'm asking, is there anyone who wants to come in? Nobody wants to talk? Okay. I've just been dealing with a friend who is very much always into the mind. What should I do? What's the right thing? What should I do? Because for some time that person had experienced quite a beautiful peace and feeling connected. And then something in her external life happened that was disrupting that experience. And since then, it has always been difficult. For moments it may come back, but then most of the time it's struggling. And then that person asked me, but what can I do? And it's clear to me, it's not that something is there that they have to do, but learn not to do all the time what they are doing now. That is being in the mind and wrecking their brain and thinking, what is the right thing? What am I doing wrong? What can I do? Shall I do something else? And then starting being somewhere, and no, it's no good. Going somewhere else, no, it's no. Like this, we can go on and on and on. And we have to learn not by doing this experience change, but by being now. By not desperately hoping to get the final perfect solution constructed with our mind, understanding the situation and doing the right thing in order to get the right thing and get the right place and not to be so agitated. But come back to the profound experience and understanding not as a result of thinking about it, but understanding as a result of being in that experience, that the solutions in such situation is not by going on and on and on and on in the mind, hoping that eventually it's clarifying. Sometimes people tell me that, but if you think less and less, then you cannot more think clearly about the subject. You have to think this way and that way and think a lot about the subject in order to get clarity. Sometimes it may happen after thinking a lot and lot that things are clearing up, but actually it's not by thinking much that we are getting clarity, but by thinking little. The clarity is simply there. Sometimes one may have thought a lot and lot and lot about the subject and then eventually get so tired and let's go the thought and then clarity comes. So it's not that we can find the proper solutions for everything with our mind. The mind, the logic has its place where it belongs. In the practical little things in our daily life. It's good to be reasonable, to use the mind that has experience and knows in the situation what to do and what not to do. But about the mind itself and about the experience of the now, we don't get the solution of the mind, with the mind, on the level of the mind. We have to learn to be and not think, what should I do, what should I do, what should I do. Remember that I have been racking my brain, and then after that, often I was after Amma saying, what am I doing wrong? Because if I wouldn't do something wrong, something should happen and nothing is happening. And she would either brush me away or she would tell me nothing is wrong, or then she said once very sternly, that you think something is wrong, that is wrong. Just continue. But I didn't want to have patience. That's the thing. I thought things should explode, come about it in no time, which of course we can then, having heard the Advaitic teaching, also logically argue for, but if the self is already here, it shouldn't need any time. And theoretically it's true, and for some rare special beings it is also the experience, but for most of us we have accumulated so much within time, so that for most of us it takes time that we are ready to get rid of it again, to let go of it. And it's not by thinking our way out of it and think that we find the solution. It's the thinking is there, perfectly valid, seeing how we are creating our own tensions, how we are creating our own problems, how we are creating the obstacles, and understanding them. It's not that we have then to do the magic trick to remove them, but simply seeing and relaxing, letting go, not repeating them unnecessarily. The solution for ourselves to find peace is not by doing, but by being. The doing is to bring the attention back again and again. And if it's easier by practicing a certain technique, then it's perfectly valid. But it's not by doing it that we become what we are. You are that here now. And the attention shifts more and more to simply be. And then more and more, and see, oh, it's so simple. We don't have to create troubles all the time. And if we don't do that, then we become aware that naturalness is simply there. And it's not affected by what is happening, neither in the mind nor in the world around. And the experience of that starts to intensify and expand all by itself. So, my friends, is there anybody now who would like to come in?
Werner,
Hello, Moksha.
hi. What I see is, I want to ask you is something about it. It's all these things what we do. Is it not out of fear to find solution and blah blah? If I look in myself, it is always fear. Oh, I have to do something, so otherwise it goes wrong, or it is, or the idea something is going wrong. Always, if I look, it is fear. And if I start to be here, what you say, I like very much to be. Just to, okay, let's feel the fear now. Let's feel what is there and be. I see it is behind it. It's always fear. Can you say something about it?
It's fear. There are two basic things that create all the agitation in the mind. It's fear and desire. Because with the desire, we always have the idea that if we do this and that, then we are getting more happiness out of it. So on one hand, it's fear that of missing anything, of annihilation, of getting into worse trouble by not doing something about it. On the other hand, there is the desire that if I do the proper thing, I get the proper reward of joy, of happiness, of God knows what, anything. On the material level, on the emotional level, on the intellectual level, on the spiritual level, we always want to make a bargain, doing something and getting something out of it. So it's the two, it's desire and fear that move us, that move people to keep on repeating the same stories over and over and over and over.
But also the desire, maybe it is coming from, if I look, where does the desire come from? Is it also not basically also from fear?
It's the...
Or do you say it is really two different things?
Well,
is it a habit, desire?
It's not fear, the desire. It's simply deep down, when we are very limited in our experience, everybody knows something is wrong there, because deep down, naturally, everybody is a divine, free being. And from that, from there, somewhere that comes that knowledge, something thing is not quite right with our present experience, with our present existence. And then the mind comes in and think, maybe if I'm accumulating more wealth, then it's all right. Maybe if I'm getting a bigger car, then I'm feeling better. Maybe. And so we are trying our level best to somehow get that sense of completeness that we deep down know that should be there, because that's what we naturally are, complete here now. But then the desire comes that I want more things, and maybe there I'm getting closer to that experience. It's always, for a moment, it may appear that it works, but it's always a futile exercise. And the fear, of course, they are hanging together. The fear is losing our stuff. The fear is losing our security. The fear is losing our mind, losing our personality, and then nothing is there. And so we struggle to secure ourselves, to hold on to things, but then somehow getting more things in order to get closer to that sense of being fulfilled. But of course, it doesn't work like that. If we stop doing that, then we become aware it's already there.
Yeah, I see there is in me still a desire, our relationship, sexuality, there is a deep-rooted thing. It is not terrible that I don't have it, but it would be nice. And there is a desire to run after it.
Mm-hmm.
I become more and more aware of it, and I feel, oh, I know it my whole life. You know, from a young boy, at some point it started, and that was very important, very, very, very important.
Yes.
And it become less, but I see still the desire is there.
Yeah.
And I see also, like yesterday night, I came the idea. You also said it sometimes. Oh, I can be a little bit more friendly to this person, Moksha. The desire is there, and all kind of strange things he is doing. Oh, to be to the person and the body more friendly. I feel, there I can learn something, to be friendly to this guy.
What we can do with desires that they stop making us restless is also not take them so serious anymore. Accept that the desires are there, but then be clear, I'm not going that fulfillment that I'm really looking for by fulfilling that desire. And then you can look at the desire, imagine that it's getting fulfilled, and often it's enough that you just in the mind fulfill the desire without having to go through the whole story, which always brings a whole tail, a long tail with it, which we didn't really want.
No, I never experienced that. It's true. Yeah. I want only the nice things, but not the trouble. And this is not possible, right?
Right. If you fulfill your desires simply on the mental level and let them go, then you can do that. But then there is the idea, but this is not really the fulfillment thing. It's not that we have to try to root out every desire. If we have tons of desire that make us restless, then we are well advised to reduce them so that we are less restless. But it's not that we have to somehow root out every desire, simply become clearer and clearer. My sense of fulfillment, of being complete, comes not from fulfilling desire, But then somehow or other we have to spend our time in this world living as a human being, so we can as well do the things that we like to do as long as it's not hurting unnecessarily anyone and as long as it's possible. Sometimes it's possible, many times it's not possible. And if you have that openness to accept it, then the desires are not disturbing. And then there are, with the fears in a way, the same thing. Little fears may be there, but if we don't feed them and make them big and getting threatened by it and getting paranoid in our life, then they are not a problem. But if we are hooking into them, then fear becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and can become a terror, and we suffer because of that. But otherwise, seeing that on one hand there is the desire to get this, on the other hand there is the fear of if I'm losing certain things, if I'm losing certain relationships, if I'm losing certain intellectual properties, or if I'm losing anything, then my life is terrible. That we learn to see those fears and become aware. No, these fears are unfounded. I am what I am here now, timeless. Nothing can really happen to that. And then on the relative levels, there are the motivating forces of desires and fears, but they are not more in charge. And then they are just playing their little role on that relative level. If we don't make them bigger and bigger and bigger, they don't become a problem. The problem is that we either of them, we make them big, and then they usually getting problematic.
Yeah. And I see also this being friendly is also make it calm.
Yes.
Oh, not such a big thing. Yes, but you say if I want to everything has to be killed and blah blah blah. In the past, I was like this. Desire terrible, and this makes it even stronger. Yeah, it's.
I mean, for some people, it's perfectly valid. It's their natural thing to be an ascetic. That is getting rid of so many things and living without fulfilling lots of desires. Still, for that person, the hunger will come, the desire for food will fulfill that desire by eating. As long as you're living, appearing in a human body on this level, little desires will come. And it's not necessary that we are strictly trying to undo them, and to push them away, to kill them, to not fulfill them. Simply, we have to learn to be aware my well-being is not depending on fulfilling the desires. My well-being is not in danger, so I need not feed the fears that are there. But then if there is a little fear, a hesitation to go somewhere, then maybe I don't go there. If there is a fear of something bad could happen if I'm getting too closely involved, then I may say, okay, I face the fear and go for the adventure. Being playful about it, both about the desire and the fear, and then they are not more a problem.
That's a good lesson for me to what you say often, don't take it so damn serious.
Yes, yes.
This is always good for me to remember. I made such a stress out of everything. Serious. I thought seriousness was really good. And now I say, hey man, relax. It is not so serious and important with my children and especially with myself.
Yes.
Otherwise it becomes, you can make a problem and seriousness about everything, a scratch on the car or what, the prices of the oil or whatever.
Yes.
And to see, okay, So
Right,
that's a good
one can
reminder.
make out of the smallest thing a big problem if one wants.
Yes.
And if one learns to be rooted in the self, being aware, my fulfillment comes out of myself. I am the source of my happiness. I am the source of my fulfillment. Then even the big problems stop being big problems, but just, okay, the situation is like this. I have to confront it. I deal with it and then let it go again.
So good to hear this all the time, because the mainstream is completely the other direction, right? Make a problem out of everything.
Right.
And just to hear all the time and to remember myself, come on, it's not a problem. Stay here. Yeah, thank you very much, Werner.
You're welcome. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Hari
Hari
Om.
Om. Hari Om. Is there anybody else who would like to come in?
Hello, Werner.
Hello, Dial. Somebody else. Maria, you are welcome to come after Dial. She also was about to come in. Okay, Dial,
Yeah.
let's go ahead.
Yeah. I want to ask you about ahimsa, non-violence. As
Ahimsa.
I remind,
Ahimsa. Yeah.
Non-violence, total non-violence. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just start with a little bit with my story. Always in my life, from childhood, there was a lot of violence in my family, in the school, in the college, in the army, and I was really understand this life is always fighting, and you need to be strong to survive, no other ways. And I was beaten a few times very strongly. I was in the hospital. But then, after a few years, I start meditating. I open spiritual books and non-violence. My life became peaceful. I was living in paradise about 20 years. I was traveling to India and I opened India for myself. That is really a country that very peaceful, very human people there. I'm starting Vipassana also. Find it really helping me to be. So, but after some times, 2014, this conflict in Ukraine has started. Not so much, but I already feel this violence is there in this world, and so and I start experience it on and on. And now it's a real explosion, and it's a real war, and many normal people killed and going on. So, and I'm really understand sometimes it's no way difficult to escape the violence. And yesterday I listening the recording of one Ukrainian man. He is spiritual, and he was talking about ahimsa, and he said this ahimsa should be always as a rule for spiritual people. We should not do any fight ever. And it clicked in me because I was living many years of this life. I'm vegetarian for 30 years about. So, and what do you think about this ahimsa? Is it applicable to this life, or it's just personal decision, or it's just not possible?
Whether it's not possible to live ahimsa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whether it's possible or not.
Yes. It is possible that you become more and more non-violent, even when we have been brought up in a violent society. Even if we have been brought up that violence is necessary to survive, then we can become non-violent with ourselves. This is a violent world, and so a certain amount of violence is there. One species survives by eating the other species. Even if you are a vegetarian, you're still eating living beings all the time just to survive. Rice and apples are also living beings. But it's good to not hurt conscious living beings. Although rice and apples have also a certain consciousness, it's not like the consciousness of an animal. Now, can you be non-violent with people? You can be true to yourself, not violent with yourself. And then when you do that which you feel is right, you are not radiating a violence. Generally, as a rule of thumb, if we can be non-violent, it's not weakness, it's more strength. If somebody is in a very weak state and always a victim, then maybe it's a step closer to become strong, to learn to be violent and to defend oneself and to beat back when it's necessary instead of always being a victim. But then the next step is that you don't need compulsory to beat back, but that you can be at ease, at peace, and not be a victim even in the face of violence. But that doesn't mean that this is an absolute rule, that sometimes it may still be perfectly valid to bang on the table and say, no, not like this. So, as a general direction, it's certainly one is well advised. Non-violence is vaster, is more expensive than violence. If we have somebody that keeps on creating troubles, and we friendly tell them, hey, stop creating troubles, you are just unnecessarily hurting my life or maybe the life of different people, and they don't listen, then we can also at a certain point say, hey, grab him and say, no, you don't do that anymore. But at the same time, it's good then to remain non-violent with yourself, that we don't feed anger and hatred for that person, but simply decide it's better because that fellow is never learning and creates pain unnecessarily, so it's good to stop him. But at the same, but not because of that start to hate the fellow who is doing that. There we can continue the non-violence, the ahimsa, that we are not becoming destructive emotionally, energetically, and think, oh, this terrible guy really needs to be taught a lesson and create those emotions and make them strong, violent emotions in order to do what we feel is right to do. We can remain non-violent, energetically, emotionally, even if for a moment, at the moment a strong emotion comes, we don't hang on to it. It comes, it goes. It doesn't leave a trace. That we are back to being at ease, at peace within ourselves, and then we are still non-violent. Even if externally sometimes you have to say, make a point and say, no, not like this.
Yes, it's getting very clear. Thank you, Werner. Thank you. Also, another thing, I was thinking, if I'm meditating, if I'm in spiritual mood, I will never be in this situation of violence, but it may be not like this for all the time. So things happened anyway. It doesn't matter if we meditate or not. What do you think about it?
Right. The tendency is that if you are more peaceful within yourself, then the surroundings also will be more peaceful. But you cannot expect that it is always like this. Sometimes suddenly you may find yourself in a violent situation. The Tibetans have been meditating, but then in spite of that, the Chinese came. And the Dalai Lama is outside of Tibet. So if somehow it has to happen in the cosmic tapestry, you can still find yourself in violent situations. But it is the tendency, the more you are violent in yourself, the more you will find yourself in violent situations. If one is always creating anger and hatred and goes around like this in society, he will also start troubles and beat up people, and it will come back to him, and like that there will be violence that is kindled all the time. If you become more peaceful, then it will invariably less manifest around. But still, sometimes it may happen that you find yourself totally in a violent situation, even if you are peaceful. It's not an absolute rule.
Okay, thank you, Werner. I will work on ahimsa inside of myself.
Right.
Thank you.
That's very good. I wish you great success with it.
Yes, meditation is the only way I see I should meditate more and more.
Meditate whether you are meditating or not. Meditate when you are sitting for meditation or when you are doing your daily activities with other people.
Okay, Hari Om.
Okay. Hari Om. Hari Om. All right, my friend. I think we have covered enough ground for today. Let us be.
Werner, somebody else want to ask a question.
Yeah. It's true. When you came in there, I think Maria wanted to come in. Maria, you would like to come in? You have to unmute yourself. I don't hear anything.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry. Hari Om. I can wait for next week. No problem. No problem.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
then
yes,
we
I am.
postpone our conversation
Yeah.
to the next satsang. Very good. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om. Hari Om.